Welcome to Women Wednesday, Christina Delay. Your wonderful business, Altina Drinks, picked up the QT Canberra Young Businesswoman of the Year award recently. Congratulations on that award.
Thank you so much. It's been such a wonderful recognition for us after a tough year.
Can you give us a little bit of a background on Altina Drinks and how, I guess, the concept for your business came about?
Absolutely. So my co-founder Alan and I were both working in the consulting industry, and that industry is quite notorious for being very boozy. There's lots of after-work drinks. And after a while, I started to get some health problems and had to cut right back on my drinking. And that was the point at which I realised that if you don't drink, there's really not a lot of fun options out there for you. You're normally stuck with a sugary soft drink or a juice, or in my case, I'd ask them to put a slice of lime in my sparkling water so I could look a little bit more fancy than I actually was. We really started to think about that and why that was the case, and how there was a lot of pressure around the fact that you're not drinking alcohol, and there wasn't a lot of great choice for you either. And so Alan and I started talking to our friends and colleagues, and we actually found that quite a lot of people had this similar issue. And so we sort of put our heads together and thought, well, hang on, I'm sure there's got to be a better solution out there, and if there's not, can we make one? And that was kind of the first concept of Altina Drinks, to really fill a gap that we saw, that we felt ourselves. And we set up a bit of a lab in my kitchen and started experimenting with different things. And after a few months, finally ended up with a bit of a concept that we were happy with, and we just sort of started going from there.
And are you a scientist? Do you have a background in science?
Yeah, I do. So I actually studied, my undergrad was a Bachelor of Biotechnology, and I've also done a Ph.D. in plant biology. So it turns out that those were the perfect degrees to do for the career that I never saw coming as a beverage designer and manufacturer.
Tell me about how you come up with the flavours of the drinks.
Yeah, good question. So the drinks that we've made so far have been really built around one flavour concept. So the first drink that we did is called Light Me Up, and we actually went down to the South Coast and did a bit of an Aboriginal bush food tour with one of the elders down there, and we came across this native eucalypt that had this incredible strawberry scent and flavour, not a menthol flavour that you might expect from a eucalyptus. And as soon as I discovered that, I thought, this is going to be a wonderful sort of top note for a cocktail. And so then I went about trying to build things around that flavour. So we added some native wattle seed, we added a bit of green tea to help with the way, I guess, the drink hits your mouth, and a bit of apple as the base. So it's kind of a bit of a process of finding a really cool ingredient and building something around it.
And how long did it take you to come up with the right mix to create these amazing drinks?
Many months, and a lot of taste testing that didn't quite go right. Let me tell you that. So, in fact, the first iteration of Light Me Up was completely different to what the drink is now, and we basically used the model of try something, let people taste it, get some feedback, and then tweak and iterate it. And so we did that quite a bit before we landed on the final drink, but that also meant that by the time we had this beautiful Light Me Up ready to bottle, people loved it. It was something that was really unique and different, but that people were really excited to taste for the first time. And I think that's been a really key part of the success of those cocktails, is that we've really connected with our community of customers and supporters and got their feedback and built the cocktails around that feedback.
And I love that because, as you know, we're from specialists in communication, so communicating is really, really key to success in any business, and it looks like you've really taken that on board and made sure that you are connecting and engaging with your audience, your clients.
Yeah, that's right. We actually are built as a social enterprise. So when we started this, Alan and I were both sort of in the place where we really wanted to do something that had an impact on the community and the way people live. And we saw this as a really great way of doing that. So there's, so much harm from alcohol. There's so much pressure around having a drink. And we really wanted to change the way that Aussies drink and the way that they perceive alcohol-free drinking. And like you're saying, a big part of that is really just communicating with the people who are interested in doing that and finding really good ways to, I guess, help to spread that message and that vision and one day eventually change the Aussie drinking culture for the better.
When you win an award like this as the Young Businesswoman of the Year, what does that mean to you?
For me personally, this was a really great validation of the way that I've built and have been running the business. I think often we find, particularly as women, we sort of suffer from the imposter syndrome and question a lot of the decisions that we make and if we're doing things the right way. But it's a lot more than that to the business itself. So we employ 3 staff members now, and it's just been a really great way to sort of stop and acknowledge all the really hard work that they've been doing through a really tough period and a really tough year. And then, of course, there's always the publicity side of things. So it's a great way of connecting with new people, introducing new people to our business and our mission and our vision as well.
Yeah, so it was definitely an award worth applying for.
Yeah, that's right. And it's one of those things you sit there and you think, oh, look, I probably don't really have a chance at winning this sort of thing, and I've got 3,000 other things that I need to be doing. Yeah. Should I spend the time sitting and writing that application? But I think that process is actually really important as well, because it makes you stop and think how far you've come. And I know a lot of us don't do that. They don't celebrate. We don't celebrate our successes nearly enough. And just having that time for reflection about what you've done and why you've done it and what the impact has been is really powerful, I think.
If I said to you 2.5 years ago that you would be a Canberra Women in Business Award winner and your business was going to go gangbusters, what would you have said to me 2.5 years ago?
I don't think I could have seen that coming 2.5 years ago. I think at that point we were really just a little concept, and the Canberra community has been so supportive of our vision and has really gotten behind it, and that's really helped to give us a lot of traction. But at that point, we were literally making our drinks 30 litres at a time in the corner of somebody else's distillery. And I could never imagine that now we have our own warehouse out here in Mitchell. I've got thousands and thousands of litres of capacity. I'm employing staff. It's just absolutely crazy.
It has been a really tough year. 2020 has delivered not only a global pandemic, but the bushfires at the start of the year, which I imagine would have been hard having a warehouse in Mitchell. And also the hailstorms sort of impacted the community as well. How have you weathered that storm? Or those 3 storms, I guess.
All of the storms of the year, yeah. The bushfires at the start of the year had quite an impact. I mean, we weren't impacted directly in Canberra with the fires themselves, which is very lucky, but the fact that it was smoky and the air quality was terrible meant that people weren't really going outside very much. And I know a lot of our hospitality customers really were hard hit by that. They saw a huge drop in their businesses because people just didn't want to go outside, which is completely understandable. And so we sort of started that traditionally really busy time of the year, that summer period, in a really sort of bad place from a hospitality perspective. But I think the coronavirus shutdowns were really the hardest part for us as a business. So we basically lost about 80% of our revenue overnight when the lockdowns were announced. Yeah, that's not an easy thing to sort of come to grips with, and that was before things like support packages were announced. So at that point, Alan and I thought to ourselves, we're not sure if our business is going to survive the next couple of months.
Sure.
Nobody knew how long the lockdown was going to last. We didn't really know what was going to happen. So it was a really big period of uncertainty. We sort of sat down and said, okay, there's a ton of uncertainty right now. Let's have a look at the things that we can control and what we could do to, I guess, try and build our business so we can come out of this not just alive but stronger.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there were a number of sort of key areas that we looked at, so things like rebuilding our budget and really getting back into the financial side of things, and talking to our suppliers and also people that we supply, and just really understanding if we were going to have people who couldn't pay invoices, how we would help to deal with that, and building that budget, rebuilding that budget, I guess, with a worst case scenario in mind. And then it was a matter of, okay, so we've sort of secured, we can go into that hibernation mode for a period of time, and that's fine. Let's make sure that we can come out of that hibernation mode. So let's make sure our supply chain is secured and we can get raw ingredients and that sort of thing. And luckily we built our business so that most of our ingredients and raw materials like bottles and things are made in Australia, so we haven't been as impacted as people who import a lot of things are. But just securing that side of things. And then it was looking outwards, how can we connect with our customers, how can we connect with the businesses that have been selling our drinks, and how can we add value? This has really been the big part that I think has driven our success this year. So we got in touch with all the people who stock our products and said, look, can we help make a better offering for your customers? How can we help support you during this time? Really talking directly to them, rather than in the past they might have bought a drink at a restaurant or at a retailer. It was actually an opportunity to talk directly to our customers and really understand what they were feeling and looking for. And I think we all sort of collectively saw as a country in the news there was a lot of discussion about drinking and being in lockdown and isolation, and how that was affecting people, and the huge mental health impacts of something like that. And so Alan and I sort of thought, okay, let's do something to address that. And so we ended up running Australia's first Zero Proof Festival across the month of July, which really aimed to connect people with ideas and examples of how to socialise and enjoy yourself without needing the alcohol. And so we had virtual events and in-person events, and shared lots of stories across our social media from our community. And that ended up being really successful. So we reached over 500,000 people on our social media. We had some really successful, obviously COVID-safe events here in Canberra, and that, I think, was a really strong way of connecting with the community.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
From that, we sort of really noticed a big uptick in our online sales, and really started to focus and build on that. And through that growth, that's when we've actually been able to bring on new staff members. We've expanded our warehouse and our production and that sort of thing through this time. So
that's an amazing pivot, really, isn't it? And it's probably something that you may not have necessarily had time to do without a global pandemic on your doorstep. So the silver lining of COVID-19, perhaps.
I think for us it has definitely been a silver lining, and I think just having like a little bit of time and space, and thinking about, if we have got just a little bit of budget to spend, let's spend that in a way that's going to have a really big impact. And I think we did that quite well in hindsight, and that has really set a really good foundation for us to continue to build that direct-to-consumer channel through our online e-commerce. And I think that's going to be a really exciting space that we're going to continue to grow for a long time.
Christina, thank you very much for your time today. You've been an absolute delight to talk to, and we feel very privileged that we've been able to speak to you as part of our Women Wednesday section.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.